Good morning, guys, and welcome to the live Regents Review Final. Hope you guys are watching this and you'll be prepared for your final that's coming up on Monday. All right, so we're about to get into this. These questions that you're going to see are very similar to the questions that you'll see on Monday. So take this opportunity to watch the video, pause it as I'm going over the questions, and that way you're able to review with me. So I'm going to read some of these questions and we're going to talk about it. The first question says, Miss Fu collected 100 pounds of aluminum cans to recycle. She plans to collect an additional 25 pounds each week. Write the equation for the total pounds P of aluminum cans after W weeks. So this is telling us to write an equation, right? And we only learned so far this year about how to write linear equations. And we know linear equations normally look like y equals mx plus b. And we know that m, that's our slope, that's the repeating action. And we know b is our y-intercept, which is our one-time action. So going back to the question, I'm just going to reread it and look for the actions that are repeating and the action that's happening one time. So it says, Miss Fu collected 100 pounds of aluminum cans. Seems like she just collected that one time. So this is our B. This is our y-intercept. And then it says she plans to collect an additional 25 pounds each week. I'm just making B red to kind of show you guys. An additional 25 pounds each week. So additional each week of 25 pounds. This 25 pounds each week, that represents our slope, our M, which is our slope. I'll just write out slope actually, make it easier for you guys. That looks so bad. Let me undo. All right. So now just putting it all together, we just have to be careful. We normally write, been writing y equals mx plus b, but here they tell you how they want it to be labeled. They want you to label the total P for the number of aluminum cans and the weeks for W, right? So we are going to, they already defined our variables for us. So we just need to write P, that's our total. Oops, let me undo. P is our total. And that's equals to our slope, right? We're just filling in our slope and our y-intercept. We said our slope was 25. And it said that these, for each week, we're representing it with W. So P equals 25W plus our y-intercept, our one-time action is 100. Alrighty. So just take a second and think about this question and see if you got the same thing. And moving on to the next one. The next question we talked about this year was function. So this question asks, which of the following graphs represent the function f of x equals 5x plus 3? Remember, a function, every input has one output. So, excuse me, and this is our rule, 5x plus 3. So we just want to make sure that if you input our x values, f of x, our y values make sense with this rule. So we can look at each of these charts to see which one makes sense. So it says f of x is equal to 5x plus 3. So we can use the function and substitute. For example, this first one, if we input 0, it's telling us we should get 3. So let's check. F of 0 is equal to 5 times 0 plus 3. And we're trying to see if this works out. So f of 0 is equal to 0 plus 3, and that's 3. So this first one works out. So far, so good. The next one says f of 2. We're just checking just to make sure that these work. So f of 2 is equal to 5 times 2 plus 3. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 3 is 13. So far, so that doesn't work out, right? What we're trying to do, we're trying to see if when we input 2, we get out -3 is what they said if this was the function. But we got something that didn't make sense. We got 13. So we know this one, so far, choice A doesn't work. I'm going to erase, and this is where I would invite you guys to pause the video and try out the rest on your own. But I'm going to go through them. I'm going to erase this, take a pause. So again, we know that A doesn't work at all. So it's not choice A. Let's try to see, based off of what we just did, we know that actually, let me just go back. Based off of what we just did, we know that f of 1, f of 0 was 3, and f of 2 had to be 13. That was what we just did. So you can just go through these choices. Choice B, this has a f of 0 is 5, so that doesn't work automatically. And same here. So now I can double check, and I see that for choice D, f of 0 is 3. F of 2, we got 13. And we can just try out the other two just to be sure. But by process of elimination, we already know that it's choice D. But we can try out the others just to be sure. So f of 4 is equal to 5 times 4 plus 3. F of 4 is equal to 20 plus 3. Sorry about the handwriting. That's a 4. It just looks a little messy. And f of 4 equals 23. So that works. And lastly, trying f of 6. F of 6 is equal to 5 times 6 plus 3. And f of 6 is equal to 30 plus 3, which is 33. So that all works. So we know that it has to be choice D. This is something that you could save yourself time. If you go to decimals, you can input each of this. Instead of doing it by hand, you can input. I'm going to highlight for you what you can put on decimals to make it easy for yourself. Just this part on the right, everything after the equal sign. If you input this portion on decimals, it'll give you the answer. F of 0 is 3, f of 2 is 13, f of 6 is 33, and f of 4 is 23, and it'll save you a little bit of time. But you guys have plenty of time for your final. All right, moving on to the next question. The next question says, what is the sum of the following polynomials? So we did a little bit of review on this in class, and this is something that we learned back in the beginning of the school year. So summing polynomials is just combining like terms to make it as easy for yourself as possible. We're just combining like terms. So we need to look for like terms. So we have 4x squared. And the like term with 4x squared, remember, like terms have the same variable with the same exponent. So it's negative 2x squared. So 4x squared plus negative 2x squared is positive 2x squared. Now, our next set of like terms, I see negative 2x. So negative 2x, and I look for something else that has an x, which is negative 5x. So negative 2 plus negative 5 is negative 7x. And then lastly, our constants are like terms, which is positive 5 and negative 2. So positive 5 plus negative 2 is positive 3. All right, that's our answer because there are no more like terms to combine, and it's already written in standard form. Look at that, real easy. And that's it. That's all we can do for that question. The next question is similar. It's about multiplying polynomials. When you multiply polynomials, you're multiplying the variables, but by looking for the exponents that have the same base and multiplying those. The coefficient of the variable, those are the ones that we multiply first, and then we multiply exponents. But when we multiply, we add the base. When we multiply exponents, I keep saying it wrong. I'm sorry. When we multiply polynomials, in these cases, right, we're going to keep the base the same and add the exponents. So I'll show you what I'm talking about. So it says 1/2 a to the third, bc squared, and 3/4 ab squared c to the 5th power. So when we're asked to multiply these things, we're going to put together the things with the same variable, right? So 1/2 a to the third, we're multiplying that times 3/4 a. So this a, we can't see the exponent here. So we know when you don't see the exponent, it's just automatically 1. So we multiply the fractions like normal. This is something that you could use your calculator for, or if you know the rule for multiplying fractions, you can just multiply straight across. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 4 is 8. So 1/2 times 3/4 is 3/8. And now we multiply the variables. So a to the third, I'm going to write this to the side, a to the third times a to the first is a to the 4th, right? When you multiply these, you're adding the exponents. So we have 3/8 a to the 4th. Now we're going to work on the next part, which is b's, right? We're putting the b's together. So b times b squared, because we're multiplying. So b times b squared. Again, the b doesn't have an exponent, so we know that it's automatically a 1. And now we're adding b to the 1st power. Sorry, we're multiplying these by adding the exponents. So the first 1 plus 2 is 3, so b to the 3rd power. And then lastly, c squared times c to the 5th. So we add the exponents and you get c to the 7th. So your final answer You have 3/8, a to the 4th, b to the 3rd, and c to the 7th. All right, moving forward. All right, the next question, we're going back to functions. So this question asks, which set is a function? Is it this first set or is it this second set? So just a quick reminder, functions, right? Each input should have one output. Each input can have only one output. And remember that your X values are your inputs and your Y values are your outputs. So X is your input and your Y values are your output. So what we need to do is just make sure that none of the X values are repeating themselves. If the X values are repeating themselves, then we know that it's not a function. So I'm going to check on the first one, this set, with 1, 4, 2, 2, 3, 0, 4, 2, and 5, 4. So this works out, right? Each X value is only represented one time. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. But then we look at the second one, we have 1, 2. So far, so good. 2, 3. That's okay. But wait, we have 2, 10. So that means that this input, when you input 2, you can get 2 possible answers. You can get a 3 or you can get a 10. So that means that you're getting more than one output. So this one is not a function. This is not a function. So the one that is a function is the first one, because each input here on the left only has one output. What makes this one not a function, once again, is because we have 2, 3 and 2, 10. So that means that when you input 2, you can get more than one output, which is not allowed. All right, moving on to the next question. This question asks us to find the value of X in the equation. We have negative 5 times X plus 2 plus 45 equals negative 30. When you're asked to solve for the value of X in these type of questions, these are linear equations, and we taught you guys a strategy to solve linear equations by using DCMI. Remember, D stands for distribute, C stands for combine like terms, M stands for move the variable to one side, and I stands for inverse operations. And a quick reminder for inverse operations, what we're talking about is operations that undo each other. So plus and minus, multiplication and division are the ones that we're talking about in this case. All right, so the first thing is to distribute, right? And if you know another way that works that's not DCMI, feel free to use this, but if you're stuck, this is your most helpful tool. So the first thing we're going to do is distribute. So distribute, we know we're distributing when we see a number, a term outside of the parentheses, in front of terms, in the parentheses with addition or subtraction in between. So we know that there's something to distribute here. So this negative 5x. So, and then negative 5 times positive 2 is negative 10. So plus 45 equals negative 30. So now that we distributed, the next step is to combine like terms. Combining like terms, you're doing this on the same side of the equal sign. So sometimes for some students, it helps to draw the bridge down the equal sign, or the railroad tracks, as some people call it, right? We're looking on one side of the equal sign at a time, and we're trying to combine like terms. So the like terms here are -10 and 45. And -10 plus 45 is +35. So we have 5x plus 35, right? These were our like terms. I'm just gonna put that together. Those were like terms. -5x plus 35 equals -30. Now it says to move the variable to one side. Well, in this case, we're good. The variable is already on one side, right? We're solving for x, and there's only one x in this equation, and then it's on the left-hand side, so we're good. And lastly, we're doing inverse operations. We do inverse operations so that you can isolate the variable that you're solving for. We're trying to solve for x and get it by itself. And so we're going to leave x alone. We're not going to mess with it until it's the last thing there. So in this case, we have +35. We want to get rid of that. And so we do inverse operations. The inverse of adding 35 is subtracting. So we're going to subtract 35. And what you do on one side, you want to do to the other. Alrighty. So you get -5x. These are inverse operations. They give us 0. -5x is equal to -30 minus 35 is -65. And lastly, now we have -5 times x. So the inverse of multiplying is dividing. So we want to divide everything by -5. And we get x is equal to, give me a second, I'm not going to be a hero. I'm going to pull up my calculator. So we have 65, -65 divided by 5, which is 13, +13. So I got x is equal to +13, and I check my work by substituting in to the equation. So I have -5 times 13 plus 2 plus 45 equals -30. So what you can do to make your life easier is input the whole left-hand side of this on decimals and see if you get -30, which you will if you did it right. So but I'll go through it step by step. So -5, cool. -5 times 13 plus 2 is 15, plus 45 equals 30. Again, this step that I'm doing, you don't have to do this. You can just put what I highlighted in yellow on decimals to check your work. And then you have -5 times 15. So -5 times 15. Oops, sorry. Is -75 plus 45, and we're trying to see if that equals 30. And it does. -75 plus 45. Oh, sorry, that's equal to -30. And -30 equals -30. So we know we're right. And you are able to get the answer correct. Thanks for the smiley face, Mr. D'Souza. All right. And Mr. D'Souza, you can take over the next question.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So Yeah, you go. Awesome. So now we're going to go back to actually what we've been doing for the past couple of weeks, which is all about factoring polynomials. And there were two ways that we learned how to factor polynomials. I'll write them quickly over here. We got our sum and product method. And we also have difference of perfect squares, that's DOPS. So there's only two methods that we've learned. So when we're looking at the following two questions, let's try to figure out which method that we're going to use. So looking at the first question, I see that there are two terms. Automatically, I'm going to start to think this is a difference of two perfect squares. It's in the name. But let's be a little bit more specific. I know 121 is a perfect square because 11 times 11 is 121. And I know 49 is a perfect square because 7 times 7 is 49. And there's a minus sign in between. So this is a difference of two perfect squares. Now I know I can just do my double bubble, plus, minus, and now I need to take the square root of each term. The square root of 121 is 11. And of course, the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 49 is 7. So I'm going to put a 7 here and a 7 here, and we're done. The next question is 100% not a difference of perfect squares because there are three terms here. So it must be our sum and product method. Remember, we need to find two numbers that add to -8, and those same two numbers must multiply, or their product must be 33. So, like every time we factor, I'm going to do my double bubble. I'm going to put my x's here. And because this symbol is a minus sign, I know that one term is going to be addition and one term is going to be, or rather one number is going to be subtraction. So to find all numbers that multiply to 33, let's do that now. We got 1 and 3. Nope, 1 and 33. 2 doesn't work. Let's try 3. 3 and 11. 4 doesn't work. 5 doesn't work. 6 doesn't work. 7 doesn't work. 8 doesn't work. 9 doesn't work. 10 doesn't work. And we're back to 11. Because both numbers, one is going to be positive and one is going to be negative, when we add the numbers, we're really subtracting because one needs to be positive and one is negative. 33 minus 1 is not 8, but I do know that 11 minus 3 is 8. But I want -8. Remember, the rule is that the bigger number must match that sign. So I know this is going to be 11 and this is going to be 3. Now, if you want to check your work, which you can do anytime that you're doing factoring, you can use the double distribute method, you can use the box method. I'm going to quickly do the box method just so that we can check our work to make sure that we are good to go. Box method quickly is you can write x in 3 and x in -11. Now we're going to multiply. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is 3x. -11 times x is -11x, and -11 times 3 is -33. We get x squared plus 3x minus 11x minus 33. The middle terms will always be like terms. So we're left with x squared minus 8x minus 33. I know I'm good to go. All right, let's do the next question. Ms. James, if you could erase and go to the next slide. All right, so we actually kind of just went over this, multiplying the following binomials. So again, your variables don't always have to be x. Variables can be any letter. It can also be any symbol if we really wanted to. So don't let that distract you. Again, you can use double distribution. You can use the box method, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Quickly, I'll do both methods. Double distribute, we distribute each of these terms to each of the other terms. So that looks like this. D times D is D squared. D times -8 is -8D. 4 times D is +4D. And 4 times -8 is -32. I'm going to combine like terms, and I'm left with D squared minus 4D minus 32. Let's use the box method. We got D and 4 and D and -8. D times D is D squared. D times 4 is 4D. -8 times D is -8D. And -8 times 4 is -32. Now we add all these up. D squared, -8D, +4D, -32. You can see it's literally the same thing that we have on the left-hand side. We get D squared minus 4D minus 32. So again, both methods work. Whichever one that you feel more comfortable with, you are more than welcome to use. All right, we can go to the next question. And again, we encourage you, maybe you're following along right now, but pause the video, try some of these on your own, or redo them without looking at the answers. Yeah, that's probably like one of the best ways that you can review for your test. So multiplying the following polynomials is kind of similar. We can multiply the like terms. So 2/3 times 1/5. If you don't know how to do this, there's a couple ways to do this. You could put it, you can rewrite them as fractions. You can rewrite them as decimals, which might be a little bit complicated because we do not want you to round. You can put them on decimals, or just remember when you multiply fractions, multiply straight across. 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. Boom, done. Next, we have x times x to the 4th. So that's x times x to the 4th. When you're multiplying variables with the same bases, we add the exponents. Remember, there's a 1 there. 4 plus 1 is 5. So this is going to be x to the 5th. And then y times y, which is the same thing as y to the 1st times y to the 1st. Remember, you add the exponents. That's going to be y to the 2nd power. And we're done. Okay. Got, I think, a couple more. And again, remember, these questions are very similar to what you're going to see on the test. These are great questions to practice to help prepare you. So yeah, hopefully you're taking the time to work out these questions. Okay, if g of x equals 2x squared plus 5x minus 10, then determine g of 3. Well, g of 3, if you notice, I replaced x with 3. So that's what we're going to do in this equation. So it's going to be 2 times 3 squared plus 5 times 3 minus 10. All this means is replace x with 3. That's all it means. Now again, use a calculator. Don't do this in your head. For us, I'm going to write out all the steps just so you can kind of see how this is worked out. This is the same thing as 2 times 9 plus 5 times 3 is 15 minus 10, which is the same thing as 18 plus 15 minus 10. And again, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this right by doing this on my phone. 18 plus 15 is 33 minus 10 is 23. Putting all of this on your phone you get that g of 3, meaning when you evaluate this function, where now x is 3, and their output, or rather your answer, will be 23. Smiley face. All right, so we're going to move on to the next question. Excuse me. The next question. Psych, this was the last question. LOL. So while there will be a couple more than 9 questions on your test, right? There's 12 multiple choice and 6 short responses. Hello. While there will be 12 multiple choice and 6 short response, and we only went over 9 questions, like we said before, 5 of those multiple choice questions, or maybe 4 of those multiple choice, maybe 1 short response, is all about factoring, right? So if you know how to identify if you're doing like difference of perfect squares or some product method, you got almost half the test down packed, right? So we did go over every single topic. There might be like 1, maybe 2 questions, like so about like, the distributive property or the commutative property. But overall, these questions summarize what is going to be on the test. They're very similar to the questions that will be on the test so that you can be best prepared for this test. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please reach out. Of course, we want to help you be successful. Again, the test is Monday on Test Wizard from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock. If you don't have an account on Test Wizard for whatever reason, you need to reach out to us. If you're not sure, you can always reach out to us. Again, you'll have more than enough time to complete this exam. You'll see in the directions that you will have to upload a picture of your work so that we can confirm that you did do this work and you didn't cheat. But other than that, we can't wait to see you on Monday. Please study for your test, and we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.